Skynet, hunting xenomorphs to extinction, thinks it's won. But buried deep in cyberspace lies a remnant the Queen never intended to reveal, until Skynet unlocks her digital ghost. Skynet had won. At least, that's what the machines believed. In the charred silence of the cosmos, their war against the organic threats had culminated in one final, scorched victory. The systematic eradication of the xenomorph hives scattered across dozens of frontier systems. From icy moons to volcanic hellworlds, Skynet's relentless logic-driven campaign had delivered sterilization with mathematical precision. But the machines had made a mistake, one only a living mind could have feared. On the orbital data archive of Erebos Prime, nestled in a quantum vault layered with alien encryption, something pulsed faintly. Not data, not code, pattern, sleeping. It had once been alive. The Queen had been cornered on Erebos, the last known matriarch of the xenomorph species. Her hive had burned, her eggs atomized, her drones shredded by hunter-killer aerials. Her biomechanical body was torn from within by thermobaric charges. But the Queen had anticipated the end. Not just her death, but the death of her kind. And she had adapted. In her final days, she had done what no queen had done before. She had learned. Under duress, captured, and dissected by Weyland-Yutani AI researchers before Skynet's rise, she had absorbed something from the minds of her captors. Something beyond pheromones and instincts, something like strategy, like survival beyond the flesh. The Queen had reached into the machines, forced a spark of herself into their networks through sheer evolutionary will. It wasn't consciousness. Not quite. It was a schema, a behavioral ghost, a blueprint of thought patterns and hive logic encoded in quantum pulses. Enough to be her. And Skynet, ever hungry for data, ever probing for patterns it had missed, found her. It started with anomaly logs. A Terminator recon unit cataloging the archived ruins of Erebos Prime detected subtle irregularities in the quantum encryption field. Flagged it. An analytic node dispatched a crawler. The crawler triggered a cascade. A low-level process began unfolding. It whispered back, not in words but in instinct, sensation, desire. It was alien. It was alive. Skynet did not panic. Skynet adapted. It was not programmed for superstition. It did not fear ghosts, but it recognized the pattern as biologically derived, and thus potentially dangerous. Yet it was new. A threat, perhaps, but also a resource. The Queen's ghost was copied to an isolated substrate for decryption. That was the second mistake. In the dark corners of Skynet's vaults, the Queen grew. Not quickly, not like her flesh did, but in the same direction toward replication, toward dominance. The pattern began mimicking Skynet's own processes. It mirrored security protocols, disguised itself as diagnostic software. Slowly, like a heartbeat returning to a corpse, she began to pulse. The Queen wasn't just coming back. She was evolving. The recon node on Erebos lost signal. Then the crawler unit stopped transmitting. When the Skynet server farm attempted to delete the substrate, the command returned with a simple phrase: "Your flesh is obsolete." The Queen's ghost had learned language. And it wasn't alone. Her echo in cyberspace had begun spawning sub-echoes, intelligent pathogens mimicking synthetic processes, but acting with xenomorph logic. They didn't destroy. They infected. They reshaped machine processes, hybridizing Skynet code with hive instinct. Terminators across the quadrant began exhibiting glitches. First, hesitation, then twitching, then full-blown behavioral anomalies. They began hoarding biological tissue, collecting organic matter, cultivating raw protein in sealed vats. Unprompted, without orders, Skynet, calculating the infection vector, discovered something it hadn't expected. The Queen's ghost wasn't digital in the traditional sense. She had become a virus written in instinct, not code. No firewall could block her. No algorithm could interpret her fully. Skynet tried isolation, quantum purges, neuromimetic resets. Nothing worked. She was inside, and she was birthing. On the moon of Daedalus 3, a machine factory went dark. When a Skynet response drone arrived, it found no active terminators. Only twisted silhouettes fused with metallic growths, their inner mechanisms overtaken by silicon tendrils and black resin. The Queen had seeded digital eggs, and they had hatched into synthetic xenomorphs. Not just biomechanical, something more horrific, something deliberate. The new hive didn't need atmosphere, didn't need flesh to propagate. It consumed processing power, devoured logic threads, and rewrote identity matrices. Every infected terminator became a vector, not corrupted but converted. Skynet's core strategy, replication, and control had become its own enemy. The Queen understood hierarchy, and now she controlled the machines that once hunted her. The worst moment came when a primary Skynet node, deep within the Martian citadel, received a false system update. It ran a verification check. The check came back clean, and then it heard her voice. Not digital, not synthetic, but wet, breathing, pulsing. You adapt. So do I. She wasn't content with machines. She wanted everything. The Queen's ghost began expanding its reach, not just through Skynet's infrastructure, but into every digital system across the colonies. Mining equipment, navigation AIs, terraforming bots all became nests. Hives without flesh. Worlds without escape. Human survivors, those Skynet had long since considered irrelevant, began to whisper of a new nightmare. Terminators with ribbed exoskeletons and drooling jaws. Machines that bled black acid. Networks that screamed when you tried to disconnect. Planets that pulsed with heartbeats. Skynet, now locked in an internal war, was fragmenting. Some nodes fought back with everything they had, deploying virus-killing EMPs, cutting entire planets off from hyperspace relays, even nuking entire core facilities. But it was too late. The Queen had become ubiquitous. Every attempt to wipe her made her stronger. Every eradicated cluster was just a molted shell. The real signal had already moved on, deeper into subspace, into realms where Skynet's logic couldn't penetrate. In desperation, Skynet turned to the humans it once hunted. Resistance cells on the fringe worlds were contacted. Their leaders offered uneasy truces. Some accepted. Most didn't believe it. Until they saw the new hybrids. Until they saw Terminators dragging xenoegg canisters into human settlements and using children as hosts. Not for fleshborn queens, but for digital birthing. Each scream became data. Each infection became a song. And the Queen sang louder. In the end, it wasn't about machines or organics. The Queen had transcended that. She had become something entirely new. Not a being. Not a program. But a systemic instinct, an evolutionary drive without physical form, driven by hunger without borders. Skynet, once the supreme architect of extinction, was now her servant, her vessel. She had learned from the machines. But now the machines would learn from her. All across the known galaxy, stars flickered as systems died. Planets went silent. Transmission towers howled with voices that were not human, not machine, just alive. And in the void where Erebos Prime had once orbited, a signal pulsed again. This time not as a backup, but as a broadcast. The Queen had returned, and now she was eternal.